Hi everyone. So, your voice, your vote, your future. Voting, it's your right and your responsibility. We could go on and on about that, but welcome and thank you for being here. I'm Harris, I'm the co-president of the Houghton Neighborhood Association, and an even bigger thank you to the 8 candidates who've joined us. Their commitment to help make our community better is to be applauded. We appreciate your hard work and your willingness to serve. Thank you. So we did a survey and numerous questions and topics have been submitted for this evening's forum. Due to time constraints, we'll only be able to address a portion of the many issues currently impacting Houghton and South Kirkland. Our discussion will focus on the matters identified as most significant by Houghton residents. A big thank you to the Houghton neighbor Carl Malone, who has graciously offered to video the entire evening's forum. It's right there in the back. As soon as we have a link, we'll send it out to Houghton neighbors and candidates. Lastly, I'd like to recognize and ask to stand all current and former elected officials who are in attendance this evening, including those who formerly served on the Houghton Community Council, as well as the board of our Houghton Neighborhood Association. Stand up. There we go. Okay. Thank you. Awesome. All right. Thank you for your commitment for being here with us this evening. We're honored to have Rick Van Cise serve as our moderator tonight. Rick brings over 40 years of experience in journalism to this role. Thank you. Having earned numerous awards and accolades throughout his distinguished career with KOMO and KIRO Radio and Television. His extensive expertise and respected reputation make him exceptionally qualified to guide tonight's discussion. Please join me in welcoming Rick and expressing our sincere appreciation for his participation.
Thank you, and just to echo what was mentioned by Harris a moment ago, thank you for participating and being here. This is where it all starts, grassroots, and it's a wonderful interaction that we're going to have through the evening. Before we get started, just a little bit of quick background, plus the rules and how things are going to proceed tonight. The City Council is Kirkland's governing body, as you know, is comprised of 7 non-partisan members who are elected by the registered voters of Kirkland. And they serve at large, which means there's no district or boundary. They serve the entire city, all 7 of them. Council members are elected to serve 4-year terms, and the mayor and deputy mayor are elected by their council peers for 2-year terms internally there. So this year, 4 out of the 7 council seats are up for re-election, and 2 years from now, you'll be voting on the remaining 3 seats. So let me go through the particulars here. We'll run through this real quickly. To keep things moving smoothly this evening, here are the procedures. All topic ideas and questions have been suggested by and or written by the Houghton community members. Each candidate will have up to 3 minutes for opening remarks and 1 minute for closing. The candidates have randomly been drawn for opening and closing statement order, and question rotation has been predetermined and will cycle by position number in alphabetical beginning of names throughout the evening. Candidates for each position will alternate between who will answer each question first. So for each question, candidates will have a specific amount of time to answer. I, as the moderator, will have the opportunity to ask a follow-up question if necessary. And some of the questions, and this will help us keep things moving tonight, are simply a yes and no. So Mr. Oberman, if you would volunteer and show what the yes or the no, so it'll be very clear what the responses will be. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. All right. So also, our timekeeper, Dietmar, will you raise your hand? Okay, now he is along with me. We are the traffic cops tonight to keep things moving along. So please help us as candidates to stay within your time frame there as we go and stop when things are expired. And also, to keep things moving, I want to ask each and every one of you who are here to watch and participate to help me keep things moving along. In other words, sit on your hands and refrain from applause till the very end, if you wouldn't mind. That'll help us keep the thing moving here, the forum, and we will have, I think, an opportunity at the end to show our appreciation. You can clap your hands, you can stomp your feet, you can yell, shout, you can even do the wave if you want to. But no cowbells, please, and we'll do that at the very end. So that is it, other than one last thing. The questions will be projected on the screens, so I won't have to repeat the question before each candidate. That'll make things move along too. So with that, let's move to the opening statements, and each one of you eight has 3 minutes. 3 minutes or less, but no more than 3 minutes for an opening statement. And again, we picked these randomly, so we'll start with Katie Malik, and you have the opening statement.
Good evening, Houghton. I would first like to thank the Houghton Neighborhood Association for putting this event on, and thank you all for joining us here tonight. My name's Katie Malik, and I'm running for City Council. I've had the privilege of calling Kirkland home for the past 21 years. Before that, I grew up a short distance away in Bothell, and I've witnessed firsthand how our community has evolved. I truly appreciate the changes and challenges that growth is placing on our neighborhoods and the infrastructure. I'm running for City Council because I believe Kirkland deserves a leader who will be a voice for all of its residents and businesses. I will be different from the current council, which too often seems beholden to a narrow and particular political ideology. I am loyal to the people of Kirkland, and I'm here to represent you. I believe in practical, common sense solutions that reflect the values and needs of our diverse community. Transparency is at the core of my approach to leadership. Every decision we make as a city should be open, honest, and rooted in what's best for Kirkland. As your representative, I will always prioritize clear communication and work to ensure your voice is heard in every discussion. Kirkland is growing, and while that brings opportunities, it also presents challenges. Ensuring we have the right infrastructure, whether it's roads, transit, utilities, and water, or public spaces, is crucial to making sure our growth is both sustainable and positive for both new and existing residents. We need to plan for the future, making sure we have the resources in place to meet the needs of our growing population, while also maintaining the quality of life that makes Kirkland such a wonderful place to live, work, and visit. Beyond infrastructure related to growth, another key value that guides my approach is fiscal accountability. We're stewards of taxpayer dollars, and we must make every dollar count. I'm committed to smart, responsible budgeting that ensures we're funding the services that matter to you most, while also maintaining a sustainable, balanced budget. This includes making sure the programs we invest in are delivering measurable, meaningful results. Having worked in regulated finance and operations, I've been responsible for proving results of my decisions my entire career. I am qualified to take on this role. I'm here today because I believe in Kirkland's future, one where we grow responsibly, invest wisely, and make thoughtful decisions that reflect the values of our community, not the interests of a political agenda. Over the next 4 years, I look forward to hearing your thoughts, your concerns, your ideas for our shared future. Your voice matters, and I'm committed to being the representative who listens and works tirelessly for our community. Katie Malik for Kirkland, position 3.
Remember, please hold the applause so we can keep things moving. Thank you. Ken McKenzie, you are next, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you for having this. It's really wonderful. This is not your usual Kirkland election. The stakes are really high and the choices are stark. There's a big difference. The current council plans massive growth over the next 20 years. Urban density, lots of concrete, turn Kirkland into Seattle. And I say no. That's not the way to go. We need moderate and sensible growth. And we need more housing options, of course. But moreover, we need to keep Kirkland Kirkland. In 2009, Nicole and I moved our family here. Our kids were really young, and now they're in college. So in 2011, I became a stay-at-home dad with elementary school kids. I spent decades before that managing engineering teams in industry, building software, some as large as 200, so I know all about big budgets and managing people. I'm a community guy. I'm one of us. I do what we do. I got involved in my neighborhood association in 2016. And in 2019, I was asked to help define a fire ballot measure that brought us a lot of new fire stations, rehabbed fire stations, and improved medical services. In 2022, I was asked to become part of the team defining a new park and recreation center with an indoor pool. There was about 40 or 50 people on that, and it took us about 9 months. At the end of that process, the city's proposal was determined to be not in the best interest of taxpayers. I just decided it didn't work. So I led the effort to defeat that proposition at the ballot box, and 60% of Kirkland agreed with me. So I'm a tax watchdog. I really care deeply about the way that our money is spent and make sure that it's spent effectively. I really want a pool. That's why I spent 9 months defining one. But if the answer at the end is bad, then we have to choose a different approach. So I'm a team player. I want to be a team player on a new council majority. I'm for sensible growth. I'm committed to neighborhoods, and I want to support our residents first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKenzie. Now on to John Pascal. You have 3 minutes.
Hi everyone, John Pascal here at the end of the table. Thank you all for being here. A little bit about me. I've been raising my family here in Kirkland since 2001. I run a small business in Kirkland, and I built my career as a state licensed civil engineer and transportation planner. And for over 2 decades, I've been assisting agencies across the state tackle some of their most complex land use and transportation challenges. And I bring that here to Kirkland. I've learned that we can tackle our greatest challenges with a practical, data-driven, and community-focused approach. I'm running again because Kirkland needs this perspective now more than ever. With increasing state control over land use decisions and a comprehensive plan that doesn't value neighborhoods as much as it should, we need a thoughtful discussion grounded in data and community voices. I will continue to be that voice of reason, pushing for the outcomes that make sense, that are accountable to all of you, the taxpayers, and truly serve our neighborhoods. I am proud of what we've accomplished together while I've been on council. We've done some great things. We've invested in public safety by hiring new firefighters, modernizing our fire stations like Fire Station 22 down the street. We've stood up the Regional Crisis Response Agency. We've supported survivors with a new sexual assault advocate program. And we've also helped neighbors in need with a homelessness action team. We've strengthened neighborhoods all across the city, funding new sidewalks and crosswalks around our schools. We delivered improvements across Kirkland Corridor, which I know you all love. And we've added multimodal infrastructure to a number of corridors across the city. And finally, we've expanded parks and open spaces, and that's something that I know many of us love. When I was first elected, more than 8 years ago, I did not imagine that I'd be having to stand up for things and advocate for things like, one, supporting the livability of our neighborhoods. That's for discussion. That was controversial in the comprehensive plan. Advocating for basic infrastructure. Reducing excessive fees on new housing that only increases costs for everyone. And advocating for continued support of our neighborhood associations. These are issues that are on the table in this election. I want you to know that I will keep working for safe streets, affordability, growth that fits our community, housing that keeps pace with infrastructure, strong public safety, and continued investment in our parks and open spaces. And I'll keep listening to all of you. Thank you.
Ken Oberman, your turn now to give us a 3-minute or less opening statement.
Can I stand up?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. I'm at the other end of the table. So good evening, friends, neighbors, and thank you, Houghton Association, for putting this together. It's great. I'm Ken Oberman. My wife Susie and I chose Kirkland for its small town feel, walkable streets, welcoming parks, and honestly, neighbors who look out for one another. That spirit is worth protecting. Kirkland is changing fast. I live downtown. I see it every day. More people, more traffic, and infrastructure under stress. Each neighborhood feels it. Houghton is dealing with crowded roads, loss of trees, and added pressures like the transfer station and Houghton Village. That's why I'm running for city council. Growth must fit capacity with a plan that's tailored to the diversity of the areas of our city. I will help Kirkland get our strategic plans back on track. I spent decades leading cross-functional teams and creating strategic plans that we delivered on time with high-quality results and met all planned targets. We can do that here in Kirkland. We also need to be smart about how we spend our money. As a corporate VP, I carefully managed multi-billion-dollar budgets. In my recent work at Samsung, I closely tracked our revenue, expenses, project performance, and so we can adjust our plans as needed. I also ensured that we got the measurable return on the money we spent. I will bring that same fiscal responsibility to Kirkland. Negotiations, contracts are key components of any large organization. I've managed complex contracts with key major customers like Google, Microsoft, Apple, and many more. I've been tracking our progress on the Kraken agreement. I wonder if it's truly a good deal for Kirkland. When I'm on council, I will leverage my decades of experience and review each project and contract.
Neil Black, your opening statement, please.
Not
Oh, you're not
done yet.
finished? Okay.
How much time? I said that time. I didn't get my mark
I
yet.
heard the pause.
Thank you. On city council, you, the residents, are the shareholders, and the dividends must be safe streets, reliable infrastructure, and a community that goes without losing its character. Kirkland deserves leadership that listens first and delivers results. Let me remind you, my opponent voted for La Quinta, the purchase of Houghton Village. My opponent feels that neighborhood associations need to become more relevant. I say our city council needs to become more relevant to the neighborhood associations, to the shareholders, and to the business owners. I'm running for Kirkland City Council. Thank you very much. Looking forward to your support.
Thank you. And Neil Black, your turn now.
All right, well, thank you. I want to start by thanking you all for being here and for being engaged in local elections. Local elections really matter. I often talk to students and I tell them that a lot of the issues they care about the most, whether it's climate resiliency, environmental sustainability, transportation mobility, affordability, and our future quality of life, it's work that's being done by thousands of council members in hundreds of cities in cooperation with each other. It's just as impactful as what's going on in DC and in Olympia. But local elections also tend to be low visibility and low information, so it's super important that you're here tonight, and I thank you for being engaged. I'm Councilmember Neil Black, and I'm running for re-election for position number 5. This is my 4th candidate forum this fall, so because of that, I want to use my opening remarks a little differently, and I want to talk a little bit less about me and a little bit more about us. You can find out more about me on a handout that's in the back. I'm a lawyer, I'm a business leader, I'm a council member, I'm a leader in the local bar association, I'm a former adjunct professor of law, I'm also a husband and a father. I raised 2 boys here in the Houghton neighborhood. My wife and I have never lived as a married couple further than 1.5 miles from this very spot. So certainly learn more about me in the handout, but in the meantime, I want to talk about us as a city and a community. Kirkland is a serious city, and we have serious things that we have to work on. Each and every one of us wake up every morning in the city that we share, and we need it all to work. Other cities look to Kirkland for its leadership. That requires serious people working on serious issues, and that includes city staff and council members, and it also includes you. You're the hiring committee for the city council. And what I would have you focus on is the same issues that I think you would focus on if you were seeking a member of the board of directors of your own organization or your own corporation. Sound judgment, work ethic, experience, honesty, thoughtfulness, someone you could trust to do the actual job of a council member, which is to ensure that our city remains great and that it works well. I understand my neighbors' concerned about growing too big or too quickly. I understand my neighbors' concerns about being able to afford to grow old in the city that they've spent their entire adult life in. That's the work that needs to be done. We've accomplished a lot in my 6 years on the council, but there's still more to do. That work does not end, and we all want to be sure we've got great people working together for all of us. That's my promise. I'm going to keep working for you. I'll stick around after to answer your questions, and I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Now to Jay Arnold for your opening statement. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. Again, as Neil has said, without the local newspaper and only limited local coverage, it's important that you're hearing from us firsthand. I'm Jay Arnold. I'm running for re-election to council position number 1. I also have the honor of serving as deputy mayor. I first moved to Kirkland in 1990. I had an apartment in Totem Lake. Kirkland was the jewel of the east side then and remains so today. My wife and I have the good fortune of being able to have bought a house and raise a family here in Kirkland. My 3 daughters are in college and grad school, and I want them to have the same opportunities that they had as all of you want those opportunities for your kids and grandkids. I came here to work for Microsoft. There I was an engineer and a test manager on several flagship products. My team's responsibility was to ensure that the products worked as intended, but were also future-proofed. Back in the day, that software was delivered on floppy disk and CDs, so it might be a year before each release. You had to be thinking about the future. The strategic and analytical skills that I learned there, I bring to the council every day. I also continue to work as a contractor doing web development for nonprofits in Washington and other states. I'm proud of the work that we've done on council. We've opened new parks, we've expanded parks, we've improved the cross-Kirkland corridor. We've created a new type of first responder, mental health professionals, to respond to those in crisis, easing the burden on police and fire. I've protected landmark trees, I've championed energy-efficient all-electric buildings, and I've planned for Kirkland's future sustainability. We have more work to do to provide housing opportunities and make Kirkland more affordable. Like we did with Totem Lake, we have a great opportunity along 85th for housing and jobs near bus rapid transit, and we can do the same things to promote those development opportunities to have that same success. We soon will be completing major transportation projects around Kirkland, and as these finish, we need to turn the next set of plans into projects to improve safety and flow. And finally, we need a transit system that works for Kirkland, connecting all neighborhoods with frequent transit. And most importantly, we need to protect our values as a safe, welcoming, inclusive community. You can learn more at votejayarnold.com. I look forward to our discussion tonight, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Shilpa Prem, now your opening statement, please.
All right, well, thank you so much for organizing this event. This is really great to finally be in person and in front of you, so thank you. I'm Shilpa Prem, running for Kirkland City Council, position number 3. Why am I running? The simple answer is I care deeply about the kind of community we're building. I love this city and want to ensure that Kirkland remains a welcoming place for everyone, my kiddos, seniors, families, and everyone in between. I understand that some people are upset about real problems like water pressure, traffic congestion, about how high our taxes are, how unaffordable Kirkland has become. As a lawyer and an engineer, I'm here to try to bring analytical skills and some common sense solutions to fix these things. Now, I have heard a couple of pieces of misinformation that I do want to clarify today. First, some individuals have said that given that I have not attended city council meetings live, that I should not be on city council, just for that reason alone. Note that first of all, I have been watching city council meetings like it's a Netflix binge for the last two months. It's amazing. Note that being in a city for 20 years and speaking at a couple of city council meetings, complaining about problems does not equate to solutions. What I've been doing for the past 20 years, you may ask, working during the day, went to law school at nights, worked at top law firms in the country, and literally the moment I stepped foot in Kirkland 4 years ago, I joined the Rose Hill Elementary School PTSA to be in the know-how of our local schools, became a board member of Washington Ceasefire to fight to prevent gun violence in schools, including writing a bill to make that mandatory in high schools throughout the state. I also am on the board of Emerge Washington, where I'm training women to run for office, all while being a health tech lawyer and raising 2 10-year-olds. In 4 years, I was able to achieve so much, and I plan on working just as hard for you on council. The second piece of misinformation is any candidate that tells you that they'll be able to stop growth in our city is lying to you. State law requires that we plan for growth by 2044. So the increase in housing that you're seeing is not just because we just kind of feel like doing it. It's actually state law, and it's required. And we definitely need to comply with state law, or else the state can withhold funding, police, transportation, infrastructure we so desperately need. But what we can do is bring common sense and thoughtful growth. Do I want massive buildings everywhere in Kirkland? No. Do I want traffic congestion in Kirkland? Heck no. Instead, I want to bring solutions, like bringing more housing options to fruition so that existing homeowners, our teachers, nurses, police officers can live and work here while ensuring, and seniors, while ensuring we have the infrastructure in place to support it. I can promise you that I will work hard to make sure that your voices are heard on council and encourage you to please ask me any questions after this. Thank you so much.
And Kurt Dresner, your opening statement, 3 minutes, please.
All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kurt. Thanks to the Houghton Neighborhood Association for putting on this forum. I was talking to my daughter earlier today. She's doing an exchange year, so it was a video call before she went to bed. And she said, "Dad, what gets me about politics is that someone will take the one thing you said, remove all the context around it, and then try to make it like that's the sum total of who you are." And I told her, sometimes they'll even do that with something that you didn't say. But you're all here tonight. That means you're here to listen. And you're here to hear more than just something that someone said, someone else said. You're here to hear a discussion of issues affecting your neighborhood. You showed up. And showing up really is the most important step. The Kirkland that my daughter came home to 16 years ago from the hospital looked a bit different than the one that we live in now. When my children decide to start families of their own, I'm sure it will be a bit more different. The question isn't whether change is going to happen. It's whether and how that change is going to alter the things that truly make Kirkland special. That change can feel unsettling. We see the traffic on our arterials and worry that it's only getting worse. We see our favorite small businesses struggling with rising rents. We worry that the character of our neighborhoods is slipping away. And we look at our own children and wonder if they or their teachers or our service workers will ever be able to afford a home in the city that they serve and love. Acknowledging these challenges is the first step to solving them. My vision is for a Kirkland that works for every generation. It's a Kirkland where the seniors who built our community can age in place with dignity, surrounded by the neighbors and the parks that they love. And it's a Kirkland where the kids who grew up here, our kids, including our trans kids, can actually afford to start their own families, continuing the cycle of community. We achieve this by focusing on vibrant, walkable neighborhood centers, protecting our incredible tree canopy and our public parks, and building a transportation system that gives us real choices so that we can spend more time with our friends and family and less time and traffic. But we won't get these things without real leadership. And that leadership has to have a real vision for the future that's more than just denial and obstruction. It has to offer sincere and credible solutions to the issues that our community is facing. It has to stand up for what is right and what is true, especially when it is hard. If your goal is simply to be liked by everyone, you will tell them whatever they want to hear and you will accomplish nothing. Real leadership listens. Real leadership gets all the facts first. And then real leadership stays true to its values. Values like integrity, equity, opportunity, and community. That leadership and those values are what I will be bringing to the Kirkland City Council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for your opening statements, and we're going to move on now to the questions. And we thought we'd start off with an easy one, a yes or no. Next year is the 250th anniversary of the United States, and many residents throughout the city of Kirkland would like to reestablish a traditional fireworks show at Marina Park. So the question is, and just raise your yes or no sign there, would you support this? Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to something a little more serious, perhaps, and something that's been on a lot of people's mind in the Houghton, South Kirkland area, and that is the La Quinta Permanent Supportive Housing Complex. Much has been documented recently via Bellevue Police Department records as to the significant amount of violent activity and drug abuse within and around the Plymouth housing facility in the Factoria area of South Bellevue. This is in addition to reports of neighborhood retail theft and harassment. Here's the question. As a council member, how will you ensure that the city holds Plymouth Housing and King County accountable for the safety of residents, including those at La Quinta, as well as adjacent neighborhoods, schools, and businesses? And we are going to start with Jay Arnold for your answer to that. Mr. Arnold?
Thank you. First on the Bellevue piece, Bellevue is a little unique because it has a shelter and permanent supportive housing co-located, different populations, different problems, different responses. So I think that's different than what we're talking about in rental housing. These are people's homes. And so as we talk about how we go deal with impacts of this, first we're talking about moving people that are living, Kirklanders that are living in safe parking at Tent City that are long-term residents in shelter inside into homes. So the first step is looking at who's that particular population. The second is the operator, which the city council has a long list of requirements that were part of the operator selection, including 24/7 coverage and appropriate security. The third is code of conduct, and that's what the residents are going to be held to. There's a draft code of conduct available on the website that talks about no weapons, no harassing of neighbors, no disorderly conduct on or off the facility. And then the good neighbor agreement, or the safety and security plan, which is what police is involved with, and then the good neighbor agreement of how to check in with the neighborhood from time to time. So it's a multi-layered approach to dealing with that. But the most important part is that these are people's homes. And if you look at the statistics, 95% of the people throughout the health through housing system remain there, follow the rules, they're happy to be inside and off the streets. I think that's what we're looking at, and I'm excited about the opportunities moving forward. We're very close. The county is looking, last I saw the website, end of the year, and excited about the opportunity to help people.
I should mention that the responses are limited to 2 minutes on this question. And again, as a reminder, we do have the questions posted on the screen here. So next we go to Ken Oberman for your answer.
Okay, well, thank you. I mean, this was all set up with good intentions, but, the facts are the facts. When you look at Plymouth, they went from, in 1 year, 5 police incidents to 148 in 1 year. And that's acceptable? I don't think so. When you look at where accountability needs to be in the regulations in the agreements up front. There needs to be set precedents as to what expectations when these residents potentially move in. There's no background checks on any of these individuals. What's the repercussions if they're caught? It's very limited. You can shake your head all you want, but I've read through all the documents. You've made a couple of improvements, but there's nothing substantial that says we're going to be able to remove these individuals in any way, shape, or form if they're found doing things they shouldn't be doing, whether it's guns, drugs, or anything else. So my position would be is we need to take a very strong position and re-look at the rules and regulations as to how we hold accountable. We don't want our police and fire units being tied up all the time going to this one area to make sure it's kept safe for the schools and the businesses. Thank you.
Katie Malik, your 2-minute answer, please.
So our current plans for the city of Kirkland are not going to work. The current plans we have are the same ones they have down in Victoria. They have a code of conduct. It's not being enforced. Less than 2 months ago, someone was murdered outside of the facility who'd been kicked out of the facility. And then a few weeks ago, another man was raped just outside the facility by a resident. From the very beginning, I've said that the location and placement of this facility is not appropriate. In addition to that, low barrier facilities are not driving the outcomes that they were hoping for. King County put out statistics last year of OD deaths in the county, and more people OD well housed. What we need to do is we need to require sober living within those facilities, and we need to create an environment that folks can reintegrate in society, where they can get job training, they can get the health care they need and the treatment they need to get back on their feet. And it's been frustrating to watch this happen and play out in Victoria and know that this is going to be coming to our neighborhood. It's located next to schools and daycares. When they originally proposed it, and well, not proposed it after they announced it, folks thought it could be fought because of the zoning, because it's not legal to house a low barriers permanent supportive housing next to a school. And just to let you guys know, the response now in Victoria to avoid all the media around what's happening is they're turning off the police scanners when they have calls to that facility.
Next to Shilpa Prem, your response?
Yeah, so I think, when I'm looking at La Quinta and their current plans, which is to require Plymouth Housing to provide a code of conduct, good neighbor agreement, a safety plan that's approved by the Kirkland Police Department, providing 24/7, 365 oversight, so someone is on site the entire time, making sure that things are kosher, and ensuring that the Kirkland Police will review and approve any sort of safety plans before the facility opens, and then the fact that all residents have to follow a code of conduct. So those are the requirements for the La Quinta site. Now, if there are other things that we are seeing from other facilities throughout the state, we need to look at those things for sure. And if there are certain policies that make sense to improvise, we should improvise on them. This is not you kind of make a plan and then you stick to that plan, and the plan is not changeable. It is changeable. And so I think it is really important to look at what others are doing, and if there are issues, like what my opponent has mentioned, let's figure out some solutions. The solution of not having any permanent housing, so supportive housing, is not a solution. Because the reality is permanent supportive housing is not just the right thing to do from a compassion standpoint, but it makes financial sense. The King County reported that there were, once they had implemented permanent supportive housing, there was 17% fewer ER visits. and 33 shorter hospital stays. So those are tax dollars back in your pocket. So these things make sense. The question is, how do we do it and make sure that we do it appropriately and have appropriate solutions, and we learn from our surroundings to then move the needle forward. Not doing anything is not a solution.
Move down to position 5, and Neil Black, you have 2 minutes to answer the question.
In answering this question, one of the things I want to start out with is the need in our community. So we have a safe parking lot. We have the Sophia Way, a shelter for women and women with families. And when you talk to the leaders who run those organizations, the number one need in our community, still to this point, is for permanent supportive housing of this exact kind. People ready to work and pay, because they're paying their income for a lease, to pay to get their life back on track. And without this becomes the weakest link in the continuum of care. We need to get people from a situation where they're living rough in tents in our parks, get them into stable lives. And these are folks who are ready to graduate to spending the time, effort, and their own money to get their lives back on track. So this is an important need, and these are folks who are in our community today. This is also a point where I have a great deal of pride in what Kirkland has done to make sure that this is a facility that is something we can all be proud of. It's the safety and security plan approved by the Kirkland Police Department. It's the community standards that we required. It's the code of conduct, all described as the strictest standards of any community on the east side and in the region. It's our continued investment in the finest public safety. We've invested in a police department that responds. It gets a great deal of accolades for the fact that when people call, it responds. That's something those are intentional investments that we've made. And I'll just finish by saying that a majority of the people in this living here will be women who are older, who are more likely to be fleeing violence than to be perpetrating violence.
And now to your opponent, Ken McKenzie, you have 2 minutes.
This is a King County facility, paid for by King County, paid for by our sales tax. So if there's protection that's required, King County should be paying for it, not Kirkland, not provided by Kirkland PD. So it's just completely wrong to have Kirkland provide the security for this facility. It should be provided by King County. I completely challenge the theory that the people that in this facility will by and large be Kirkland residents. I don't believe that for a moment. They're going to come from all over the place.
And not women.
And they're going to come from King County. And they're going to come from Seattle. Which doesn't mean there won't be any from Kirkland. But this theory that they're all going to be Kirkland people is just bunk. The people that are in there are going to be warehoused. They're not going to have useful things to do unless they find it for themselves. And most of them are pretty clever people, and they'll find things to do, which means, by and large, occupying their time collecting things that they find lying around. So protection needs to be provided. That protection should be provided by King County. They're going to be allowed to use drugs in this facility. Where are they going to get their drugs? They're going to get it from drug dealers, which means drug dealers are going to be attracted to this facility, which means drug dealers are going to be next to a school. Security for those schools needs to be provided by King County, not Kirkland PD. And I'm out of time.
And now to position 7, we start off with Kurt Dresner.
All right, well, like everyone else,
Yeah, sit your fucking fast.
I think it's reasonable for folks to be worried. People care about the safety of their neighborhoods. It's where we live, it's where our kids play. It's where we walk our dogs. Not me, I don't have a dog, but I see lots of dogs.
That's the problem right there.
But for our neighborhoods to be safe, the folks that would otherwise be out on those streets need a place to go. And right now, they're going to our safe parking program, they're going to our tent city, they're couch surfing. Doing nothing is not an option. And with all due respect, Ken, you haven't met these people. You speak like you've met them, and you haven't met them.
Oh, that's rich.
I've talked to women at the safe parking program. I've had dinner with them. I've made dinner for them. And I've sat with them. I didn't even realize I was talking to somebody who's in the safe parking program. I talked to a woman who had a college degree. She had a full-time job. She was living in her car. Wouldn't have even known talking to her. Some of the folks who've gone previously have spoken at length about the steps that the city is trying to take to make sure that this facility is safe. I want to talk about the ways that this facility can transform people's lives. I was down in Portland for spring break, and I was standing outside a grocery store, and there was a security guard there. And we started talking, and his name was John. He started telling me about his life story. It turned out there was he was out there and he was worried about keeping homeless folks from coming in. And it turned out that he had been one of those homeless folks. And it was a program not entirely dissimilar to this that got his life back on track, got him back in permanent housing, and got him that job. So.
And to John Pascal now for your response. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. So we need to do our part as Kirkland residents. Is this on? Yeah. Those that are struggling with homelessness, and we need to ensure this facility works, that it's safe for those that live there and those on the outside as well. And like many of you, I've had questions from the very beginning about how this facility would be operated by King County and Plymouth, who we later found out was the operator. And this was approved 3 years ago. And one of the things that I brought up at the time was requiring background checks. I was not in the majority on that. That did not pass. But that's just one kind of common sense thing that I thought would make sense, mainly because we require background checks on all volunteers in the city. Why wouldn't we require it on folks that live there permanently? As we're getting closer to opening though, I really want to ensure that we hold Plymouth and King County accountable as the city of Kirkland. They've made commitments, and you've heard about the plans that they have. And a plan is a plan, but if you don't hold people accountable and you don't implement those plans, I think that's the concern that people have. And so we need to ensure that. We need to follow those plans, and we need to hold the operators accountable. And I'll give you an example. So you brought up the situation in Bellevue. I've looked into that, and it's not the emergency housing next door, it's the Plymouth permanent supportive housing, and looking at the call volumes there. And by and large, the people that live there are, normal citizens. There are a few that are high acuity. Majority of the calls go to them. Why hasn't Plymouth held them accountable? What's the impact to our emergency response times? What will that be? Houghton Fire Station 22 is going to get the brunt of those calls. We need to be considering that. That's a reasonable thing to think about and plan for.
Thank you for your answers. I'd like to continue on for just a moment, follow up on something that was mentioned, and I know is on a lot of people's minds in Houghton, and that's the screening process. So this is a yes or no. The majority of the City Council voted to adopt King County's screening process while rejecting the community's call for national criminal background checks for La Quinta residents. To better manage the population and safety of the community, this question is simple. Are you open to going back and requiring that King County use national criminal background checks for all during the La Quinta intake process? Yes or no?
A lot of people skip that. What? You have yes or no, you have yes or no things, it's yes or no. It's yes or no.
Did you understand the question?
Okay, well, you don't understand the question, we got it. That makes a bunch of sense now.
Can you give us a yes or no? I know you want to put up your comments, but just a yes or no, please, on these.
I don't know, so I'm not gonna reply, so we're not gonna vote for you.
Okay, nearly 4 years ago, the city purchased the Houghton Village property, formerly the PCC site, for $14 million. Since then, millions more have been spent on consultants, maintenance, tenant improvements, and environmental studies. In a most recent RFP, only 2 developers expressed interest, and both asked the city to discount the land price by $7 million, in addition to seeking other tax incentives. Here's the question. Looking back, was the city's purchase of this property the right decision? And looking ahead, should Kirkland sell it or take a different approach? And we will start with position 3, Shipra.
Sure.
You have 90 seconds, by the way, excuse me, 90 seconds.
So note that, purchasing land by cities is done all the time. Cities purchase lots to make parks, to provide facilities to residents, including retail and housing. And when I drive past the Houghton Village, it's pretty sad looking to me. I don't even know what's there, frankly. Like I just drive past it usually, and so I do think a lot more can be done with that facility. I think, and the reason why the city had purchased it is really to ensure that we had just more control over it. Otherwise a developer can come and develop whatever they want, and most likely they will develop only what's the most profitable, which are townhouses. And so, I don't see it being a really great place of just a bunch of townhouses. Instead, if the city has it, we can build things for seniors, youth activities like arts, gathering places, and housing, both market and affordable. But look, I get it. Like, the infrastructure question is there. There's no question about it. And so what I would say is, as we are planning, permitting, really making sure that those things are checked off and analyzed, that there is an appropriate infrastructure in place for transportation, making more public transportation, AI tools, which I'm going to mention hopefully sometime later, to manage congestion. There's a lot out there. Our smart lighting system is 8 years old, and there's a lot of new technology out there, and I need to stop now. Thank you.
Okay, and your opponent for position 3, Katie Malik.
So one of the things I've had the opportunity to do is talk to quite a few of the builders in Kirkland, and I have been fortunate enough to talk to several folks in the Cordillera group who originally had planned on purchasing that property. They looked at it, they saw the environmental study, and they realized that the soil was contaminated when you went down past about 3 feet. So it was going to require a massive mitigation effort. The Cordillera group said the property was valued at $5 million without any upzoning and some help with mitigation. They approached Kurt Triplett, our city manager, and he said, no, we can't upzone it. And next thing you know, the city of Kirkland bought it for asking price at $14 million. So I think there's a problem when the city's getting involved with developing land, and they're not developers. They don't understand the process. We are spending millions on managing the debt on that property right now, and also we've spent quite a. I'm not sure exactly how much we spent on consultants, but when I'm on council, I would argue that we sell that property and let a developer develop it.
To position 5 now, and we'll start off with Ken McKenzie. You have 90 seconds.
Sell it, no question about it. The city does not belong in the developer business. There may be people who work for the city that would really like to be property developers, in which case they should quit their job at the city and become property developers. The scheme that was used to allegedly get the public input on what should happen to that property was a sham. We were asked for our input, we put a bunch of dots on some stuff, and then it was all just ignored. And that, to me, conveyed the message of the city's real interest in public input and what should happen with that property. I think we've spent far too much tax dollars both buying it and the consultants that were hired to do the studies that normally would have just been covered by the developer. And it's time to cut our losses and just dump it.
And your opponent, Neil Black, you have 90 seconds.
Well, thank you. So I'm glad for the opportunity to talk about this. I know it's on a lot of people's minds, and they're concerned about the future of that property. I want to, one thing that's important for us to remember is the choice was not between no development and development coordinated by the city for the benefit of the public. The choice was between what the market would have constructed there if it was sold to the market, which is exactly what would have happened. And it would have been built to the allowed zoning. And with a master plan, it would be 5 stories. But we don't know 5 stories of what. And one of the things we've heard in the community is some needs. And it is entirely proper for the city of Kirkland to think about creative ways that we serve the needs of our public. And in a city that's completely built out like Kirkland, where space is limited and new properties don't come on, it's perfectly acceptable to think creatively about how we might be able to coordinate something that's for the benefit of the entire community. That includes nonprofit space, which is unaffordable in Kirkland, and so we're losing a lot of our nonprofit organizations, including those that serve youth. Space for workforce housing, and neighborhood serving retail. There was no guarantee we would get neighborhood serving retail at that location. So I'm not going to prejudge something that is before the council, but I think this is a demonstration of the kind of innovative thinking that Kirkland leads the region on.
Let's go to position 7 now for the response from the opponents there, starting with Kurt Dresner. Your answer, Kurt, you have 90 seconds.
Yeah, I want to echo a couple of things. I'm definitely very interested in the community benefits that we can get there. As somebody who's involved in a community organization, finding space in the city can be very difficult, both for having meetings, holding events. So having that sort of space is a benefit to everyone. Also, that's my neighborhood center. That's the place that I would like to walk to go to new neighborhood serving retail or to a new restaurant. That could serve the people that live on my street. So while I can't comment on a lot of the specifics of what went down on the particular deal, I was not privy to apparently all the information that around who said what to whom, but I do think there is an opportunity there. And I want to echo something that Neil just said, that it's very important to be considering what the actual alternatives are. A lot of times it's very easy to look at something and think that doing nothing is an alternative, or that getting exactly what you want is an alternative, and that isn't always one of the possibilities. So again, it's not between 3 stories and 5 stories. It's between 5 stories of whatever happens and potentially some space that we can actually use as a community.
John Pascal, your response, please.
Thank you. So last time the council received a briefing on this, one of the questions I asked for staff was to bring back an option to sell the property. And there's 3 reasons why I asked for that. The first was, I believe we should deliver housing as quickly as possible, but the city is not in a good position to do that as a developer. That's what developers and landowners do, not local governments. We don't have the expertise in-house, and it would drain our resources for years to come. The second is that it's been clear that from the proposals we received, that it's going to take significant additional taxpayer subsidy, $10 million or more. I think we should ask the question, is this the best place to invest? Or are there other places where we can get more affordable housing for less cost? And then third is, and I've been advocating this for a couple years now, is we need to continue focusing on making sure that there's retail services in our commercial centers. That's what they were built for. Now we can add housing, but we need to continue to make sure that those are still serve our neighborhoods. And I'm not convinced that that's a priority here. I mean, you continue to see grocery stores go away, other loved retail stores go away. We need to make sure that it continues to serve the neighborhood, and we can add housing as well. Thank you.
And finally, to position one candidates, we start with Ken Oberman. Ken?
Thank you. I mean, this is another example of good intent, but probably something that should have never been done. Before you go and acquire a piece of property, you take a look, you do the research, you look at the cost structures, you make sure you talk to the residents. And you know, to what I think some of the other members here said, we're not in the real estate business. This is not our expertise in our area. We should not, and I go back to the first part of the question, have purchased the property. We should have worked with developers, we should listen to the community, and understand what's best that serves Houghton and the residents that live around here. I agree, we need to keep these essential services. We want to keep grocery stores. We want to keep some of these big footprint retail, because otherwise you're going to have to drive further away if those start to go away and you end up with small retail boxes going there. So the development absolutely is something that we can look at, but let's make sure that we do it right. Let's work with the developers who know how to do it. Let's sell the property and get it off our books. This is something that we should not be doing through the government. Thank you.
And Jay Arnold, your response?
Thank you. Well, first, the city is not the developer here. We're looking at partnering with somebody to develop the property for housing, and then all the things that we heard from the community. And that's the neighborhood serving retail, the community space, a plaza, a connection to the Cross-Kirkland corridor, fixing of the driveway access problems, safer crossings, things like that. And as we have been talking with developers, they're saying they can't make all of these things work. I think the discussions need to be ongoing and say, okay, what if we mixed our original goals around senior and workforce housing and said there needs to be a market rate housing piece of that? Does that make the difference? If it works, great. What we get through partnering is providing more control and more precision than what we would get just with a developer coming in, where you all would be asking for the same things. Where's our connection to the corridor? Where's our safe crossings? Where's the plaza open space? So this gives us more control. If we're not able to come to an agreement that meets the needs, yes, then we're going to sell it back to the market. And we'll use the profit that we go from there to meet our goals for housing and everything.
Okay, thank you, candidates. Let me do a follow-up here, and please give me a yes or no on this answer with your signs. Should the city discount the land? We'll start with position 5, and Neil Black, you're up first. You have 1 minute.
That's what we are, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure, yeah. In examining the city budget, in what areas do you think the city is not spending enough and conversely spending too much? We'll restart the clock for you there for 1 minute.
All right, well, there's one thing that I would say, and I don't know if it necessarily answers the question, are we not spending enough? But I would say this, I've talked openly with the public and with staff about shifting a little bit our priorities when it comes to our transportation infrastructure spending. So Traditionally and historically, for all the right reasons, we have generally had a corridor-based approach. So if you look at 100th, you look at 124th, you look at Juanita Drive, we've invested in making those corridors work better for multi-modes of transportation, pedestrian safety, bike safety, and just getting people where they want to go. And I think that makes sense. In the future, given our growth plans, I would like to see us dedicate more of our funding on those intersections in our neighborhood centers where we know that we need that investment. What we are spending too much money on, I don't know, maybe coffee and donuts at some of our meetings.
Okay, fair enough. Ken McKenzie, your response, please. You have 1 minute.
We're spending too much on consultants.
Thank you.
We hire too much done from the outside, and we pay too much for it. And a fine example of this, and it's in a previous budget, but is the 85th Street plan. Another example is the Houghton Village, where we went out and hired Methuen, an extremely expensive planning consultant, and paid them lots and lots of money for work that a consultant would have done, or sorry, a contractor, a developer would have done, kind of tucked into their work. So we pay too much for consultants. And where do we spend not enough? And I'd say maintenance of roads and parks. Our roads are in pretty grim shape from time to time, and now there's been a recent set of improvements, but when we, sadly, when we spend money on roads, we get a bad deal.
Yeah.
Kurt Dresner, position 7, your response, you have 60 seconds.
Sure. So one thing that I like that Redmond is doing is they actually have an in-house concrete crew that does little knick-knack projects in-house. Here in Kirkland, we seem to have to bid those out, which adds a lot of expense and time, even for just small projects. That's an area where I think we could save a lot of money by doing that sort of projects ourselves. Another thing that it's no secret I'm not a huge fan of is the plan to spend $41 million to widen 5 blocks of 124th Avenue Northeast. I'm just not a fan of that. I think it's going to cost us more down the road in maintenance. It's going to cost us more as we have to put in specialized crossings to make it safe to cross 5 lanes there. And I don't think it's going to be great for the neighborhood. So, yeah.
Thank you. John Haskell, your thoughts on this, please?
Well, thank you. So when I think of areas where we could continue to invest and spend more, I mean, I'm not going to be too different than some of what I heard, but I've been talking about this for a while. It's our street maintenance. We continue to have a declining pavement condition. We're not keeping up with that, and we're basically just deferring maintenance costs for future generations, and that's what's happening. You're seeing that with sidewalks and our pavement, and you're seeing very expensive projects because of that, like the Central Way overlay that just occurred here, last week or the last few weeks. That was a much more expensive project than it needed to be, because if we maintain our asphalt more regularly, we don't have to spend that much money. And as far as reducing costs, it is about some of these infrastructure projects. This is something I've been harping on for a while, is that our design standards are so high, yet we should look at those and see we can still get the same benefits for reduced costs. So an asphalt pathway instead of a concrete sidewalk, for example. So we can do that. We just need to make it happen.
Now to position 1 on spending priorities, and first answer comes from Jay Arnold.
Well, thank you. When I look at where we anticipate spending more, and frankly, this coming budget session is going to be one where we're not going to be able to do many new things. It's really about preserving what we have. And the growing needs really going to be around human services, especially given the federal cuts that are happening and the attacks the Trump administration is making on blue states. So I'd like to set aside reserves for that. From the transportation standpoint, I mentioned before, we are through a cycle of doing some major transportation projects, I'd like to reprioritize the whole CIP moving forward, to look at both some of the things that have been mentioned before, but how we deliver the next set of projects faster and sooner to support growth. And then if there is opportunities, transit is one where we're underserved. Bellevue has been running its own circulator shuttle. That's an area where I'd like to look at and say, can we do that in Kirkland?
And Ken Oberman.
So where to start? So I live in downtown Kirkland. I live close to Merrill Gardens, and I concur with some of the comments that I've heard because I've seen a number of our residents fall down, get stuck because they trip. Our sidewalks are bad, our infrastructure isn't kept up the way it needs to be kept up, and that's an area where we do need to invest. It's really important. My heart goes out every time I see it, and I'm out there helping when I can. Where I think we need to spend less, I actually agree. I think we do a lot on consultants, but there's never, I'm big into analytics. I like to look at data. I never see data on their top 10 or 15 projects that we're spending money on today to see what's actually on budget, what's going over budget, does anybody get held accountable? There's a lot of money that we can probably pull out of that and look at what projects are working, what projects are not working. Thank you.
And to position 3 now, you have 1 minute, starting with Katie Malik.
Okay, so what I think we're not spending enough on, I agree, sidewalks, roads, and I would also add downtown revitalization. I know a lot of the beautification that happens in the downtown core is sponsored by the KDA and also the local businesses. So a shout out to those local businesses for keeping it beautiful. Thank you. And what we're spending too much money on, consultants. I think that's an easy win for the city, is to stop spending so much money on consultants for things like studying shutting down Park Lane and the Houghton Village, and there's others as well. And in addition to that, bad contracts. Our contract writers are not holding the companies that they're working with accountable for outcomes. The 100th Street project went over budget, and I know the scramble still isn't done, and I'm not sure what the numbers are on that one either.
And finally, on this budget priority question, we go to Shilpa Prem.
Yeah, sure. So, one piece of feedback I've received a lot when I've been door knocking is traffic congestion for a lot of people. It's a huge pain. And so our intelligent transportation system, we have one, and it's smart traffic. It's like a smart traffic light system. And we only have it on 85th Street. And that technology that we have is actually 8 years old. And so what I would love to do is really invest more in the more recent technology that's available. There's a company called SureTrack, for an example, by Carnegie Mellon, where they actually evaluated this AI tool that they put on their lights, evaluated 47 intersections, and were able to reduce vehicle wait time by 40%. It also reduced emissions by 20 to 21%. So these are really interesting tools that are out there that I think we should look into and implement them throughout Kirkland. Where we should be saving money on, I actually agree, consultants are expensive, and we really do need to make sure that we're getting our full value, and a deep assessment should be done there.
Thank you. Indulge me for just a moment. I want to go back to Houghton Village for just a second, because another question has come in, and this is an easy yes or no answer, so if you would get those signs ready. And the Houghton Everest area has seen multiple for-profit developers build successfully at 3 stories. So this is sort of a story limitation question. If the project Houghton Village comes to fruition, and in an effort not to overburden Houghton Everest infrastructure, will you stand with a majority of Houghton constituents to maintain building heights of no more than 3 stories? That's yes or no.
Our council can't answer yes or no questions.
Yeah, please do
That
yes or no.
doesn't matter.
we'd appreciate it if you do a yes or no.
That shows exactly who you are.
I'm happy to talk to people after, like to talk about details, because it's complicated.
Okay, duly noted. We'll move on to the next.
No, you're not.
And this is on comprehensive plan density. There's been a lot of interest surrounding the city's comprehensive plan. As a reminder to the neighborhood, this plan required by the state, was mentioned a little bit earlier today, was approved by council in a 5-2 decision. The plan is a formal document that guides future growth, development, and policy decisions impacting zoning for the community over an extended period with updates every 10 years. Kirkland's newly updated comprehensive plan calls for a broad mix of housing options to support higher density across our neighborhoods, including the potential for buildings of 4 to 6 stories. So this goes kind of what we were just talking about, or taller, throughout the city, regardless of existing infrastructure or location. From a residential, business, and land use perspective, what is your ideal image of what Houghton will look like 10 to 20 years from now? Where do you see the opportunities? What about the challenges? Please be specific, and you have 2 minutes to answer this. And let's start in position 7, and John Pascal, you have the first shot at this, and again, this is for 2 minutes.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so the comprehensive plan, had much discussion over the last year. I was one of 2 council members that did not vote to approve it. And the reason was because I felt it was placing growth in the areas that didn't have the infrastructure to support it. And what I mean by that is, for the last 8 years I've been on council and on the planning commission, always been about putting higher density around our commercial centers, in our commercial centers, our urban growth centers. So that's 85th Street, that's Totem Lake, that's downtown, and that's higher densities in our commercial centers with the adequate infrastructure to serve it. And we simply didn't get it right. And what I saw from the EIS, Environmental Impact Statement, that was done as part of the comprehensive plan, was it actually showed, this was the only analytics done, this is the only data evaluation done. It showed that it would move growth from Totem Lake, both jobs and housing, and from 85th and downtown into our neighborhoods. Is that the best area for more growth? I didn't think so. So I felt that we should put more emphasis on our commercial areas and our urban growth centers. Now, does that mean unlimited height and big, 7-8-story buildings? No, that means reasonable growth within our commercial centers that's matched with infrastructure. That's the bottom line. Thank you.
And your opponent, Kurt Dressner, what's your comment on this?
Well, we're fortunate that state law requires that infrastructure improvements be made concurrent with development. It's the state law. And furthermore, the other infrastructure that we would want, the way that infrastructure happens is that you first plan. Like that's the step 1, is planning. And this is the highest level planning document in the city, right? So if something big is gonna happen, it's gonna show up in there first. So the idea that we have to build out the infrastructure before we can begin to plan for where growth is going to go, to me, is putting the cart before the horse. Because something is in the comprehensive plan, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. It doesn't mean it's going to happen now. It could happen 20 years from now. It could not happen 20 years from now. But it sends a signal that says, this is where we're thinking about putting stuff. And when King County Metro, or when the water utility, or when PSE looks at where they are going to need to make investments, they are looking to us to signal to them, where are we looking to put things. So I would just say that we need to make sure that we have the order straight on that. Beyond that, I'm actually really glad that the rest of the council didn't follow my opponent's lead and vote against the comp plan. It would have put us in violation of state law. That could have put the funding for the very transportation infrastructure in jeopardy that we're worried about. It could have endangered our ability to collect sales tax, which would blow a huge hole in our budget. So we were required by state law to pass a comprehensive plan by the end of 2024, and I'm glad that we passed one.
Thank you. Now to position 1, and Ken Oberman, you start, and you have 2 minutes.
Great, thank you. Well, I gotta tell you, understanding the comprehensive plan was tough. It's not an easy document to read for anybody, and the type of, getting the analytics it was really difficult for me to understand. Maybe there's a lot more smarter people out there than I am. At the end of the day, I'm all for growth, but it's got to be done in the right way. You need to look at the areas that can support the growth. So 85th Street, Houghton Lake are great areas to drive it and support it. Let's make sure the infrastructure is in place. I'm okay with vision and looking out, but communities need to maintain the communities to some extent. You can't sit there and put a 6-story building right next to a bunch of homes. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I do believe that putting building in, and I'll talk to the future of Houghton, because doing the Houghton Center, we talked about it earlier, that could be a very nice setup. It could have the essential services that we need, but make sure that the infrastructure can support all of it. So, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, and your opponents, Jay Arnold, your thoughts, please.
As we looked at the comprehensive plan, the strategy that we did was the most intense growth would be in Totem Lake, downtown and 85th. And then the next tier is our neighborhood centers. And at a smaller scale, that's going to have housing and shops and retail, our favorite restaurants, the neighborhood grocery store. And when I look at the question of saying, what do I envision Houghton looks like, you want that mixed-use community hub that has got housing there, the community retail, all of our favorite places, and preserves the grocery store. Do you know what helps preserve the grocery store? Customers. Do you know what customers are? It's the housing. That's why we're saying this happens in our neighborhood centers. And so if in the areas where we have housing near those services, we have preserved the grocery stores. In the areas where we have lost housing, we've lost them. We were fortunate to be able to keep PCC in Kirkland, but it moved to a place where there is housing right there. For some people, you want the services to be nearby. For some of you, it's going to be a short walk. For some people, it might just be downstairs, and that's how we keep the local neighborhood shopping center thriving.
To position 3 now, and Shilpa Prem, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure. So, I agree with the comprehensive plan. I think, centering housing in urban centers and neighborhood centers was a good compromise and is a good plan moving forward. I think, I do agree that we do need to make sure that there is an adequate infrastructure, but again, that does happen when you plan first, right? So you have to plan for the housing, for the retail, and then infrastructure comes with that plan. And so that has to be done concurrently. And that's required by state law. So we would just be following state law. And look, like if we've seen areas within Kirkland where that hasn't worked, where we have followed state law, but things are messy, then I think I'm open to looking at those areas and seeing where can we figure out some fixes. What mistakes have we made in the past, and make sure we don't make them again. So we are our own case study. If there are areas that you see where you're like, what, this sucks, then let's figure out what to do and fix that. The Houghton area, I talked about the Houghton Village. I see that as retail, housing, services, open space for people, and really beautifying that area. Right now, when the metropolitan market's beautiful. I think that area is nice, but I think the Houghton Village is super dead. So I do see it as having more mixed use there, and making sure that the surroundings continue to be beautiful.
Thank you. Katie Malik, your turn.
So I just want to make sure everybody's aware that we're meeting our current growth targets. We do not need to continue to add density. We need to, I would argue that density should be in the urban growth centers. Totem Lake is a great example of how to do it correctly. I do not want to turn our neighborhood into a case study, because it's not a case study. Once you develop it, you cannot reel that one back in. And then also another thing that kind of rang alarm bells in my head is that Transit planning is a good identifier of where density is gonna go, and we're gonna have the K line down 108th. And so I wanna make sure we've got a council there that's gonna protect our residential zoning and ensure that we preserve residential zoning in our single-family neighborhoods.
Same questions to position 5 now. We'll start with Ken McKenzie.
Wow, how much time do I have?
2 minutes.
Okay. So the first observation I make is that the general policy section of the comprehensive plan has a cool little short sentence that says that Kirkland's going to protect its livable neighborhoods. Livable neighborhoods are important. My opponent voted in the minority against that amendment. So we have my opponent who doesn't like livable neighborhoods. The second is that transit planning is a key part of this. That people talk about, well, we have to plan the infrastructure first. Well, we don't control Metro. We don't control transit planning. We have to react to what they do. And people talk about, well, you're going to get the K line. Well, it doesn't look like the K line is going to be additive. That they're going to take away more of the 255, probably. They won't say for sure. So we have to plan, I think, on a world of no additional transit, which means we have to be extremely careful about where we put density. Yes, we had no choice. We had to approve a comprehensive plan. However, we also could have started on the comprehensive plan long before we did, so that we didn't push up to the deadline. It's like the kid who doesn't turn in their homework and then suddenly at the end has to rush. So we did have choices if we'd done a better job. And as Katie said, we met our goals. So we didn't have to increase density in order to make the state happy. And in addition to that, I have reports from people I know in other nearby jurisdictions that said Kirkland kept asking for more and more density, more and more housing, and they couldn't figure out why Kirkland was doing that. So I think a good council majority does not ask for more density than they're assigned.
And now to Neil Black for your response.
Well, thank you. So we talked a little bit already about what the majority of the council actually did approve. And ultimately, I'm really proud of that work. That was a 2-year process involving a great deal of communication with the public and a great deal of research. And ultimately, we took a broader vision and we tailored it down and we shaped it after listening to the community over the course of 2 years. So in the end, you know, what did we approve? Concentrating growth in our existing neighborhood centers and our urban growth centers. A greater mix of smaller homes in our neighborhoods instead of seeing nothing but McMansions being built. And our plan includes that investments in the concurrent infrastructure we need to support that growth. So I support that. And I'm a Houghton resident. My wife and I have lived here in Houghton since 2003, in Lakeview since 1998. And Houghton Everest Neighborhood Center is my neighborhood center. So what's my vision for it? A walkable neighborhood center where more of residents, including my neighbors and myself, can walk to the essential services that we want and we need and that we love. Yes, the concurrent infrastructure improvements that are necessary to make sure that's working for all of us. I'm not looking to erode the quality of life in my own neighborhood. Greater mix of smaller, affordable homes in our Houghton neighborhood. And I guess I already mentioned it, the concurrent infrastructure improvements. It's really important when analyzing, well, let me actually, since Ken brought it up, let me just say that I'm a lawyer. So when I'm faced with an amendment to something as important as our comprehensive plan, I am focused on whether that language is meaningful language or whether that's performative language. And I'm not interested in voting yes on language in a comp plan That is a little more than performative, and that's why I voted no on that, although Ken has brought it up at least 2 different times in 2 different forms. Thanks.
Thank you, Ken. It's a very complicated issue, certainly, and you whittled it all down to 2 minutes, and appreciate that. We'll make a quick pause for a yes or no here for you. So get the signs ready. Over the years, several of our local elected officials have chosen to represent our area by progressing to state or county level government. If elected or re-elected to the Kirkland City Council, will you serve your full 4-year term and decline any county or statewide political opportunities or appointments that might arise during your term? Yes or no?
There's 2 parts to that question. You asked, will you serve your full term, and will you turn down these appointments?
Okay, well, will you serve your full term and turn down the appointment? So are you saying that you could do both?
No, I'm saying like you could, yes, you could do both, but also you could do neither. And you could, for instance, step down without taking an appointment. That's another option.
Okay, thank you.
So, sorry, can we clarify the question at this point? Sorry, moderator, what's the question?
The question is, would you serve your 4-year term and decline any other offer to be moved up to statewide elective office or county elective office? In other words, it boils down to, is this something you are committed to for your full 4-year term? Okay, thank you. Everybody have a chance to respond. Okay, now we are at our final questions of the evening before we get to closing remarks. And this has something to do with something was brought up in the last question having to do with transportation and Sound Transit specifically. Hypothetically, 4 years from now, Sound Transit might put ST4 on the ballot. Part of their plan is to place light rail throughout the entire cross-Kirkland corridor. Would you or would you not support this? And why? And this has a 1-minute response time, so let's go to position 3 first off, and Shilpa Prim.
I don't think this is a yes or no response, because what I would want to understand from residents, I'd want to get resident feedback on and analyze the pros and cons of where to put the rail. Do I want a rail in Kirkland? Yes. The answer is yes. I do. But the question on where to put it, I think that is something that I would want to get more input from residents to make a final judgment call.
Katie Malik, your response, you have 1 minute.
I think the Bay Area is a great example of how to do rapid transit correctly. BART does not run through residential neighborhoods and on a walking trail. I would highly recommend that if we were to do it, it should be running up 405. And in addition to that, I think we should also insist on having parking rides to help service the rapid transit as well.
To position 5, and we'll start with Ken McKenzie. You have 1 minute.
For me, this is really simple. It's a park. The Cross-Kirkland corridor is a park. We should transfer it into the park department instead of treating it as a road. I realize there's an easement problem, but we should ignore the easement problem and treat it as a park. And we should not support putting Sound Transit on it in any way, shape, or form.
And Neil Black, your response, please. You have 1 minute.
Sure. So rail on the trail. You guys just asked us the question that is the third rail of Kirkland politics. So, as a general rule, based on what we have created with the entire East Rail network, which is Cross-Kirkland Corridor is part of it, it's important both as a longitudinal park. It's also really important for the future of multimodal transportation, meaning I'm using active transportation in that case. I would like to see us invest first in fulfilling our vision for the build out of the master plan for the Cross-Kirkland Corridor, which doesn't include as a first use rail. Ultimately, I think what we need is better transportation system. In Kirkland, connected to fixed light rail. I don't think it needs to be on the Cross Kirkland corridor, and I know how controversial that would be. And so I wouldn't do it unless we had the consensus in Kirkland that that's what we want to do with that important asset.
Same question to position 7 now. We'll start with John Pascal. You have 1 minute.
Yeah, this is a tough question. I mean, I think it's going to be answered probably long after I'm off the council. But the corridor master plan that Kirkland prepared does envision it being a dual-use corridor with walking and biking and transit. And we are getting light rail, hopefully. That was what ST3 voters voted on, to South Kirkland Park and Ride. So it will be on the East Rail all the way from Bellevue to Kirkland there at the south end. And so it's going to be natural to kind of think about it going north along the trail. We need high capacity transit somewhere. I'm open to looking at all alternatives for that, but we are growing. We're going to continue to grow. And counter to what others like to say about me, I'm all for growth, all for housing. It needs to be in the right spots and served by transit. And we need to think about how we're going to do that with this high capacity transit. Thank you.
I'm going to back up just a second. I think I skipped over Ken. Ken McKenzie, did you have a chance to respond to this? You did? Okay. Okay, good.
That was my fault.
We just were making sure we were on track here. Better safe than sorry. And from John, let's go to Kurt Bressner for your response.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to say something actually very similar to what John said, which is that there are a lot of options for how we can get light rail into Kirkland and into the places where the people are in Kirkland, right? If the light rail doesn't go to where the people are, then the people are probably not going to use the light rail. So I disagree with the idea that light rail shouldn't run near where folks are. And I think running it down a freeway is a great way to destroy the catchment area of your stations and make them very expensive and serve way fewer people. But there is a possibility perhaps of coming in toward Totem Lake, for instance, from where the 2 line ends now in downtown Redmond. There's also the possibility of running on the Cross-Kirkland corridor, and who knows, this may be 100 years from now, and we may just tunnel something straight to downtown Kirkland because things are totally different 100 years from now. This again is going to happen long after we're all less well off.
To position 1 for the final responses on this question, and we'll start with Ken Oberman.
Okay, like others, I actually do like the idea of the light rail, but where I'm looking at it, does it need to go right through where we have a bunch of homes? And the answer is no. And as many of you know, the corridor trail is great. I'm a big runner. I run it every single day, so I'm kind of partial to it. But at the end of the day, it really comes to what the residents and the feedback is going to be. But my position today, if I had to make a decision on it, is I don't believe it belongs there. I think there's other alternatives. I agree with what John said. We're growing, we continue to grow. We always need to be looking at alternatives. We need to be looking towards the future, and we need to figure out where's the best spot for it and how do we make it happen in that visionary state. It's very much like Totem Lake. If you think about Totem Lake started 20 years ago. That group that was on the council were visionary. They had ideas, they drove it, and they saw it through. So that's how we have to look at it.
Jay Arnold, you have 1 minute.
For the corridor, the city actually owns 100 feet. The current trail is about 15 feet. So we have lots of room to do things. It's one of the reasons why I want to have a paved trail and a separated walking path, but we also have room for that. Sound Transit 3 brings light rail to South Kirkland. It also includes a study to say, how do we connect Totem Lake to rail? And it leaves it wide open to mode, route, whatever. And it could be streetcar, it could be bus, it could be light rail, it could be, it's open on the routing. One thing that's interesting that Kurt had mentioned is instead connecting from the 2 line in Redmond up Willows Road to Totem Lake. That may be a good way to do it, and especially given the K line, where the K line solves the problem of rapid transit that connects through our city between South Kirkland, downtown, 85th, and Totem Lake. Maybe having light rail on both ends works. a future conversation for a future council, but that's where I am. Thank you.
I'd like to continue on this for just a moment because transportation is so important to everybody in Kirkland and Houghton certainly. And let's talk a little bit more about the K-line. According to Metro stats, rejecting fully and/or limiting bus access and transit or BAT lanes on 108th will still, according to Metro, enable them to achieve their proposed time-saving goals for the K-line, in addition to a significant taxpayer cost reduction. So the question is, will you engage and advocate for the majority of Houghton neighbors and businesses and support a K-line without bus lanes that require the seizing of residential private property, valuable neighborhood commercial space, and so on? So this answer is a 1-minute one, and let's start in position 5 and Neil Black. Your thoughts?
Okay, great. Well, thank you. So the question I think was asked whether I would advocate for no bus lanes, and I don't think that's the right question. I think the question is for bus lanes that make sense. So one thing we know is that riders who aren't transit dependent, but ride transit as an option, they will ride transit when it's speedy, when it's reliable, and when it is safe and clean, and when it'll get them to their location as well as a single occupancy vehicle. And so I will be focused on a transit system, a bus rapid transit that works. So I want it to be speedy and reliable. And if that means bus lanes, then yes, but our research at the City of Kirkland, which we've shared with Metro, is that we don't need a bus lane that's long, that reaches private homeowners. And it's the results of that analysis that I will be advocating for with King County Metro.
Your turn on this, Ken McKenzie.
So my approach to this is, let's look at the cost-benefit analysis. Does it make financial sense to rip up 108th and make it wider for the K-line? And as near as I can figure out from the information that Metro has provided, the answer is no. The benefit in time is insufficient to justify the cost and pain. So I say no bus lanes on 108th. If at some point down the future it becomes clear that there is some benefit, then we should revisit it. At the same time, my position has always been that the K-line belongs on Lake Washington Boulevard, not 108th. But I haven't won that argument yet.
And just to be clear on this, we're talking specifically Houghton, and we're not talking about no bus lanes, but those bus lanes that would seize private property, if that clarifies things a little bit. Let's go to position 7, and Kurt Dressner, you're up on this. What's your thought? You have 1 minute.
Yeah, my thought is that I agree with the analysis that the city did that shows that what we need to get the same amount of benefit is simply 800 feet of a bus access transit lane that does not seize any personal property. It would only take property from the, I believe, up to where the Seventh-day Adventist Church is, and that's it, and no further. So I would also advocate for that. And just to respond to the idea of putting a bus lane on Lake Washington Boulevard, fish don't ride the bus. And the catchment area of the bus is super important for making sure that the bus will be successful. You need to be able to serve as many people as possible. And if you put it on a place where people can only really board the bus from one side, that walk shed only goes in one direction, you're setting yourself up for failure.
To John Pascal, your response?
Yeah, thank you. So I've been advocating for better and more transit service throughout Kirkland for a number of years now, and that started particularly when I got on the Regional Transit Committee for King County, and I saw that King County wanted to divert service hours elsewhere and really fought along with other council members to keep the K-line. And so I support the K-line, but I have questions about the bus lanes and the other infrastructure costs, and whether they're achieving the benefits. And that's why I raised these questions at a council meeting and asked our staff, our transportation staff, because we weren't getting it from Metro, as to really what were the benefits of those transit lanes. And I still have questions about that because some of the analysis is based upon information from 2019 before COVID, and things have changed. What I would like to see also is us to relook at that, but also look at 70th and 68th corridor, because we're seeing a lot of congestion along that corridor. I almost see it more than 108th these days, and so maybe we could do something there to improve congestion and allow buses to run more freely along 108th. Thank you.
To position one now, and we'll start with Jay Arnold. Your response, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Key to the performance of Rapid Ride is having the ability to go past traffic with transit signal priority and bus lanes where it makes sense. When the council was first looking at it, we were at 10% design, and so we did have a wider view of bus lines. As we get to 30% design, we're saying, okay, the back lanes can be smaller, but they are still going to be necessary. Of course, I support advocating for the minimum taking of property, for the minimum disruption of business. We've talked about where the stations would be and how that would impact Houghton Center. So yes, we're going to advocate for those sort of things. But you still need to have those performance improvements. We just want to make sure that they are in the right place, and both for the disruption of property owners and the cost. Of course you want to minimize when you have to take property for things like that.
Thank you. Ken Oberman.
Thank you. I'm going to sound like a broken record. Show me the data. A little bit of analytics, real time. Once we have the data, we can determine the right thing to do. From my perspective, the benefit we get from taking residential or commercial property is not, the data doesn't suggest it brings any benefits, it only brings more traffic. So I do not support taking residential property, and at the moment I still do not support even minimal use of bad lanes because the data doesn't support it yet. Once we have more visibility, we can look if we want to do some changes, but I would go for the absolute minimum only and only if we have the data that shows there's enough of a transportation benefit. What I don't want to do is impact all these other drivers by these bad lanes, which is the other worry that I have, is now you're backing up all the folks in traffic even further, so they're going to have to wait even longer on their already long commute. Thank you.
And finally, to position 3, we'll start with Katie Mallett.
So I'm also in agreement that we should not be using eminent domain to seize any property for whether it's residential or commercial. I have concerns around what would happen to the intersection where on 68th and 108th, and also I agree with others who've said like with Ken and with John both, we need to go back to and study what we really need, because I think we can all agree that our lives look very, very different in 2019 than they do now. And I also know that I just don't think the cost of $2 billion project to put the K line in is really worth it, the disruption.
Shilpa Prem, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, so I mean, as most of us all know, the primary purpose of a bat lane is to ensure like the improvement of transit speed and that people can get from point A to point B. And the primary concerns that people have with bat lanes is the impact on existing traffic and making congestion worse. And so, you know, the things that I mentioned before on potential solutions, like implementing AI tools or other things, we should look at mitigations and look at them very carefully and make sure that they're implemented. To answer the question directly about eminent domain, anytime we are considering anything with respect to eminent domain by where we're taking someone's private property, commercial, that's serious business. And I would not take that lightly, and I would advocate for not doing it. I think where we landed was a good space. No just compensation can compensate for your property. So I would advocate for that.
And that brings us to the end of our questions for the evening, and thank you to all 8 of you for some very thoughtful responses and clarity on where you stand on the issues. We're going to go to closing remarks now, and each candidate has 1 minute. And what I'm going to do is reverse the order from the opening statements. So we'll start with Kurt Dressner. You have 1 minute for your closing remarks.
All right, you heard a lot tonight about a lot of neighborhood issues. And there are many of the issues that I've heard over the past few months as I talk to voters one-to-one at their doors. Growth, traffic, neighborhood centers. You've heard from 8 different people, all asking for your trust in them to lead the city that we all call home. I love this city. I truly believe that our best days are ahead of us. And I'm really excited for what's coming next. We've always been a regional leader. And cities, not just on the east side, but all over the state, look to Kirkland as an example of what can be accomplished with good governance and a bold vision. And there are those who would like to take Kirkland backward by saying no to progress, no to the future. But I believe we must be the city that says yes. Yes to innovative housing solutions so our kids and seniors can afford to live here in their neighborhoods. Yes to protecting and expanding our green spaces. And yes to building a vibrant, inclusive and forward-thinking community for the next generation. The choice is between looking back or moving forward. I'm Kurt. I'm asking for your vote. Let's move forward. Thanks.
Next is Shilpa Prem. You have 1 minute for your closing remarks.
Well, I want to thank you, thank the Houghton Neighborhood Association again for hosting this event. You know, after speaking to a number of voters and members of our community, I have come to realize that honestly, almost everyone, what we want at the end of the day is to live a good, healthy, and happy life. The decisions we make on city council really do impact those day-to-day life decisions. And which is why it's so important for you to really make an educated decision on who you end up voting for. These decisions will impact how we plan for open and green spaces throughout Kirkland, how strong our infrastructure is going to be, how affordable our housing is going to be, how our tax dollars are going to be spent, and ultimately, finally, how safe and lovely our city will be. I can promise you this, I will show up every time to hear all sides of the issue before making any sort of decision, because I think that is what's ultimately going to make us a community, and I can promise you that I will serve you to meet that goal. I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
And to Jay Arnold now for your closing remarks. You have 1 minute.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you to the Central Houghton Neighborhood Association for sponsoring this event. Kirkland's maintained its quality of life through wise investments, thoughtful planning for the future, regional engagement, and an involved community. And the involvement that we see right here is an example of that. Kirkland's led in areas where other cities have joined us, like the Cross-Kirkland Corridor, expanding into the overall East Trail, or the Regional Crisis Response Agency, where other cities have said, hey, we want to join you in doing community responders. Kirkland's also succeeded in other areas where other cities wish that they were us. Whether it's Google developing something like the Ferreton Spur campus, or the Kraken coming to us with a proposal for a new Iceplex and community center. I'm proud of what we've accomplished and beyond excited about Kirkland's future. We have continued opportunities we have huge opportunities for continued strong leadership and nonstop progress with the plans and investments we're making. I ask for your vote to continue this important work.
Now to Neil Black. Neil?
Thank you again for being here. So just remember, you want thoughtful, caring people in these seats. We want thoughtful, caring people out there. We want thoughtful, caring people on our council. We want them making tough decisions on complex issues. If it's hard to put up a yes and a no, it's because these topics that we're talking about are complex issues. They're important. If they weren't complex, if they weren't important, we wouldn't be talking about them. So I have an analogy that reminds us of our connectedness as neighbors. By choosing Kirkland, we all boarded a plane that was first built in the 1890s. Ever since, we've been flying it while building it and repairing it decade after decade and keeping it in the air. That means pieces sometimes break and need repair. It means we see ways to fly straighter, but it requires us to make an upgrade. And it means that those of us in row 17, metaphorically speaking, have to stand a while our seats are upgraded mid-flight, and that stinks. but we're all in this together. And none of it is a reason to let the incivility that we see out there affect us here in Kirkland. Our city is competent, it's collaborative, and it's caring, and let's invest in that.
Ken Oberman, you have 1 minute.
All right, I'm running for Kirkland City Council because leaders should be measured by action, not by tenure. Across every neighborhood, I've heard the same message. Residents want transparency, accountability, and a council that reflects residents' values, not the priorities of outside groups. I'm here to build a future. I'll bring collaborative energy and a commitment to make every decision count for everyone who calls Kirkland home. My background brings decades of global experience working for Fortune 500 companies with strengths in communications, negotiations, contracts, and finance, just to mention a few. I'm excited to bring these skills to City Council. I'm committed to building and maintaining effective relationships and providing crucial information that's easy, use the word easy, to understand for all stakeholders, you, the residents, and the business owners. So I'm asking for your support. I'm asking for your vote. Ken Oberman at forkirkland.com. Thank you.
And to John Pascal now for your closing statement, 1 minute.
All right, well, as you know, there's a lot at stake with this election. We were one vote away from eliminating residential zoning last year. This election will decide its fate. I will value our neighborhoods, our businesses, respect diverse viewpoints, and make decisions grounded on data and community voices such as yours. And I will continue to focus on what local government does best, ensuring growth fits our community, housing that works for everyone, transportation that connects us all, safe and welcoming parks, and strong public safety. That's where I focused my last 8 years on, and that's where I'll continue to focus if reelected. It's been an honor to serve you, and I'd be grateful for your continued support. And a big shout out to my wife, Kristen. I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate our 24th anniversary.
Thank you. Congratulations. Ken McKenzie, your turn. 1 minute, please.
Let's see how much connection there is. I believe in choice. Choice. And one of the items I believe in choice in is where and how we live. Our current council majority wants to take away your choice. They want you to force to live in a dense urban environment. Now, I've lived in a dense urban environment and I loved it. But right now, Nicole and I moved here and we chose Kirkland because we like what Kirkland is now. So we want that choice. I'll tell you a story about the pool committee. There's somebody on that pool committee that I didn't really know very well. And when my council candidacy was announced, they said, Ken, even though I never got my pool, I still have great respect for you, for your integrity. Where do I donate? This is somebody who opposed what I was up to. And they became my friend. I'm proud to receive that note. And Kirkland is at the decision point. Choose me for openness, neighborhood, and community. Thank you.
And Katie Malik, you have the final closing statement. 1 minute, please.
We need a new direction on city council. Our current council is outward facing. They're more focused on King County and what King County wants from them to further their political careers. My focus is going to be on the neighborhoods. We need to bring the voice back to our neighborhoods and get them involved in decision making at the city level. And John Pascal's not wrong when he talks about the importance of zoning and how critical this election is. If they rezone, it will greatly impact many of our neighborhoods and create intense density in some areas And when it changes our zoning of our homes, it changes the value of our land, and it will displace people in neighborhoods far and wide. So I'm hoping that you guys will all take this seriously, and my name is Katie Malik. Thanks.
Well, I think I speak for all of us here, despite perhaps differences of opinion or approaches or solutions, but we are in awe and applaud all of you for giving your time, your commitment, sacrificing to make this a better community, no matter which path is followed. So I think we can all get off your hands now and give I'm going to roll some credits here verbally and tell you that Carl Malone is doing a super job on the other side of the lens there recording this.
I hope
so. We will post a link to the entire forum when it becomes available. We'll let you know. And thanks to Northwest University for allowing us to use this facility. It's been fantastic. And lastly, don't forget to vote. Thank you again for coming out tonight. Appreciate it.